Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. And I have a different kind of video that I'm going to do on here today. I was like sifting through my books, and I was trying to come up with a video to do. I am almost done with the third book, the third installment of the Unlovable graphic novels. I'm in love with them, and I'm going to do my review of that when I'm done with all of those. But I'm pretty much focused right now on reading about the BTK killer's daughter. It's called A Serial Killer's Daughter, and it is the book of the month for Peter's Book Club. So I'm listening to that on Audible, and I'm reading a James Patterson book. I know, don't kill me. So anyway, but other than that, like, I don't really have a lot of like booktube videos to make other than tags. And so I searched my name on YouTube to see if anybody had tagged me in a book. Nobody ever tags me in book tags, and I love doing book tags. But I did notice that there was this video that had just gone up by Gabby from Gabby Reads. Let me see when she posted this. One day ago, and I'm like, why did Gabby put me in a video? And I looked at the title of it, and it was thought-provoking books and some thoughts about them, so it wasn't a tag. And I'm like a long-time fan of Gabby's, which is so funny because when I started watching her video, she said at the beginning of it something like, I got this idea from a video from a booktuber that I love to watch, Peter Monn, or Peter Likes Books, something like that, she said. And I was like, oh my God, I love you too. I watch her videos. And she's been around for like 3 or 4 years. I've watched her from like right at the very beginning of when I started BookTube. So hey Gabby, how are you? Thank you for mentioning me in your video. But she kind of took the idea of what I did in my book tag that was called I think it was called 5 Books, 5 Polls or something like that. It was just like themes or questions or ideas that you have from reading your books. So I thought, this is actually a great idea. You know, I wish more people would have deep discussions about the books they do and not just, doing hauls. I listen, I love the hauls and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I kind of sometimes on YouTube on BookTube specifically, y'all know I have 5 channels, right? Okay, it's hard keeping it all straight. But I sometimes miss the old days of BookTube, like old days for me, like when I first started, and like the innocent days of just wanting to do a book haul and just wanting to do a book tag. And that will probably never change on my channel, okay? I don't really care how trite it is. I don't really care how corny it is. I love doing that stuff. I love going to buy books. I love buying audiobooks. I love doing hauls. I will continue to do that. And I don't really care if it's corny. I think it's fun, and it's part of what I wanted to be part of in the BookTube community. But I also think, as avid readers, it's important for us to have discussions about books and how they affect books and books. And books and books and books. Oh my God, and more books, and woo, and books and books. I mean, and just, and books. And yes, Pee-Pee, I know, and books. So anyway, I took a cue from her video, and I pulled out on my bookshelf. Most of the books, and books, most of the books that have really affected me are in my basement, because I keep them down there, because what I have on my bookshelf is what I want to read. Is that strange? Like, I probably only have 20 books on my bookshelf that I've actually read. The rest of them are all books that I haven't read, and the books I have read I keep in the basement. And the reason for that is that, like, I just want to go over there and find something new to read, which is why whenever I do book tag videos, they always have like the same 20 books in it. It's not just because I have only read 20 books in my life, because that's not the case. So anyway, I went over there and I pulled 5 books out, and I tried to pick books that I don't regularly talk about in my videos. From now on, I will go down to my basement archives, because I think that I am going to maybe make this a series on my channel. I don't know how long, so Gabby, don't kill me. But if I do, I'll give you credit every single time, Gabby, and I will link her channel below so you guys go subscribe to her. She's awesome. But I do think that I'm going to make it like a series on my channel. I may do it like, I don't know, once every month or something like that. But like picking out 5 thought-provoking books and talking about why they affected me. And it's interesting when I was picking these books, like why they affected me the way they did. So I'm going to get right into this, okay? And the first one that I have is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Now, I will also tell you that the majority of these books that I have here, with the exception of one, were not like my all-time favorite books. Like, I didn't live and die for them. They weren't like, I wouldn't say, oh my God, you have to read these books. So The Outsiders was kind of that for me. Like, I liked it, and I think I gave it a good, I don't remember what I gave any of these books as far as a review or a rating, but I liked it. I thought it was good. It just, like, I don't know, like, I didn't read it till later, and it didn't really, for me, live up to the hype of what I thought The Outsiders would be about. you know, and I had heard so much about this and the movie, and I still, like, I bought the movie and I still haven't seen the movie. Like, you know, it's just, like, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing. And it's so interesting to me that it just didn't live up to what I thought it would. But the one thing that I didn't expect to get from this book was a new definition of true loyalty between friendships, or between friends and friendships, you know, and we can talk about this book and Pony Boy and all that kind of stuff, you know, and I mean, isn't it just great characters? I mean, this book does have fantastic characters, right? But I even think that they're kind of one-dimensional and flat to some degree. But that being said, like, the whole, like, loyalty itself is almost a character in the book. Like, it just redefines what loyalty between friends is and between brothers. And I think it's so fantastic. And really, when we look at it and we talk about this whole idea of a bromance, this was literally like the very first reference ever to like a bromance. I mean, it really, really was. And we look back at that, you know, and I think about how like advanced this book was for its time in a way that we don't really talk about, and you know, really discussing some issues that we don't talk about. I mean, like loyalty and love between men like that, like those friendships, those bonds, like we don't really like. I know that this might be a surprise, okay, and I'm gay. If you didn't know it, I'm gay, but a lot of heterosexual men out there that I have witnessed, friends of mine, are not as close as they are in this book. So, you know, to kind of go into that and show this whole idea of, you know, like love between men, you know, that of a friend, of loyalty of a friend, I thought was fantastically done, and I loved that about it. The book for me, I mean, was just kind of okay, but that part of it I thought was so fantastic. So, you know, I think when we read, whatever we read, whether we love it or hate it, we should always try to pull something from it, you know, and if it's a book that we don't finish reading, maybe even just try to pull something from that book, you know, so. I will say that I bought her other books and I have not yet read them yet. I'm sorry, S.E., but not my favorite. Okay, the next book that I'm going to read will probably shock some of you guys, and this is probably my favorite out of the stack, and I do know that I gave this book a 5 out of 5, and that is Jaws by Peter Benchley. Okay. So, true fact here, if you don't watch my videos on a regular basis, you do not know that my biggest fear in life is sharks, okay? My biggest fear in life is being eaten by a great white shark, or even seeing one. I think I literally would, like, have a heart attack and die in the water. I truly would. And I have so many funny shark stories, and I've told them before, so I won't tell them today, but just really funny stuff, right? But I was also raised on the movies, and I have a weird obsession with sharks. Like a weird obsession. Like I watch shark movies, all of them, I've seen all of them. I get on YouTube, I watch all the shark videos. People always, they're like, what do you watch on YouTube? Because if you know my other channels, people are like, oh, you watch this or you watch that. I'll tell you what I watch. I watch booktubers, this is true story. Listen, I have never read, I don't think, one book that Connor O'Brien has ever read in his entire life, but I watch every one of his damn reviews. And I like his videos, you know? And I just think that BookTube is just such a damn nice place, isn't it? I just love it. So anyway, I watch BookTube videos. I watch aliens in outer space, like that they've captured stuff. And then I watch like Loch Ness Monster footage. True story, you guys. I'm conspiracies of the world. So anyway, then I watch like shark videos, but not shark attacks because those scare me. Okay. So usually like when they're swimming in a cage and stuff like that, or around a cage. So I read Peter Benchley's Jaws a couple years ago for BookTube-a-thon. I was so blown away by this book. Now, I have also seen The Deep, the movie The Deep, which was written by Peter Benchley. And I've read another one of his books too. I can't remember what it was. I got the, I bought The Island, I haven't read it. The Girl of the Sea of the Cortez, I haven't read. I think it was White Shark or Beast that I read, which was equally really good. And I think it takes place on the East Coast as well, but it's completely different. But I had not read Jaws, and I thought, why read it? Because it's going to be just like the movie. Everybody talks, it's just about the movie. Well, there was a great documentary that I watched that showed how this became the movie, and if you have not read Jaws, it is not the same as the movie at all. There are subplots and characters that don't even exist in the movie that are in this book, okay? And I was so blown away, and I think that and I will say this, I love the movie Jaws. As a film, not as a scary movie, but as a film, because I do think it's the scariest movie ever. But as a film, I just love watching it and the footage from the town and all that kind of stuff. I don't know which one I would say is a better one, like the book or the movie. Like for me, like I say that with To Kill a Mockingbird all the time. I love the book and I love the movie. It's the same with Jaws. The book is so different in a way, and scary too. Very, very scary in a way that the movie wasn't. I mean, there's so many backstories, but the lingering thought, the deep discussion part of this to me was, that what happens when your perception of something changes so drastically, right? Because I have watched this movie every year, a couple times a year. I don't ever watch it in the summer. I don't. If I'm getting into a pool or going somewhere, I don't watch it, okay? But I have watched this movie so many times, and when I read this book, it was like a complete paradigm shift. I was like, I don't know that I'll ever be able to look at Jaws the same way again, and you won't, especially with the actions of one character in the book, and it's like, I just can't look at it the same way again. So is it interesting when we read a book that maybe we've seen a movie of or vice versa, and it completely, because of how they change it, it changes our perspective. And that for me was what this book had done. And really before that, like, you know, the ending of Paper Towns, I was so disappointed in because it didn't end like the book did. But I mean, it was Paper Towns, okay? It wasn't Jaws, it was Paper Towns. I mean, I'm not dissing John Green, I love his work, but it was Paper Towns, you know what I mean? It just didn't end the same way at the end, and I was disappointed. I thought the movie sucked, okay? It was horrible. So anyway, but I love the book. But that's like a film adaptation. Like, this is a film adaptation too, but it's, I don't know, canon almost, kind of, like, for me and, like, the books that I've read in my life. And it forever changed how I looked at things with Jaws. I don't think I'll ever look at Jaws the same way again. So has there ever been a book that you've read, that you've seen the movie, or vice versa, where it completely changed how you look at things? This video is going really, really long. Okay. The next one is Songs for the Missing by Stuart Onan. And I love Stuart Onan. I am a huge Stuart Onan fan. If you do not know who he is, go seek him out. Read Speed Queen first, then read The Night Country. He is one of my favorite authors of life. I've read almost everything by him. He has quite a few books out. Like, let me see, this book came out a couple years ago. And at that time, he had Last Night the Lobster, I read. The Good Wife, I have not read. The Night Country, Wish You Were Here, both read those. I've read about half of his books. Well, almost 3/4 of his books. Snow Angels was made into a movie. It is fantastic. And he has written with Stephen King, and he's good friends with Stephen King. His work is nothing like Stephen King, no. Well, maybe the parts of Stephen King that aren't super scary, and the little that I've read of Stephen King, because I really haven't. But I read one, like, they wrote a short story together called The Face in the Crowd, and I just didn't like it. But anyway, every book that he writes is so completely different, and it's basically a character study. Songs for the Missing is about a young girl that she is kidnapped or goes missing. You don't know throughout the book. It was the summer of her chevet of JP and letting her hair grow. It is also the summer when, without warning, college-bound Kim Larson disappears from her quiet Lake Erie town. Her parents, her little sister, her best friends, and her new boyfriend now must do everything to find her. And, oh, then it says, as time passes and local search parties give way to wider TV appearances, private investigators unearth dirty secrets, and we follow those closest to Kim as they struggle to maintain hope. And finally, as the news cameras turn away, to hang on to both her and themselves. You know, I love kidnapping books. I don't know why. I love, like, you know, personal narratives of when it's happened to people. I can't think of the woman the girl that it happened to several years ago. She's written 2 books now, but they were fantastic. But this was so well done. But let me tell you what I loved about this. If you've ever read The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, this was similar to that. And it really wasn't about the girl that was missing. It was really about how her family was affected and their behaviors after that. And it was very sad, and it was very tragic, and I did not love it. I didn't love it because I don't know that I could love it, if that makes sense. If you've ever read a book that you really couldn't love because it just was kind of, it just was a downer, like that's how this book was to me. But, oh, Boo Radley's being so sweet. But it was just such a powerful read. Like, it really made me think of things differently, that the tragedy that happens in our life forever changes who we are. And I guess I already knew that, but not on the level, like, sometimes the changes that occur we don't expect. Sometimes the loss that we have in our life makes changes occur that we would never have ever in a million years expected to happen to us. And I think that's what makes our stories so individual. And that's what this book taught me. But like I said, it was difficult to read. And I think often really good art is difficult sometimes, you know? I think really powerful books sometimes are difficult to read because they challenge our perceptions about things. I love to read for escapism and enjoyment, just like the rest of us out there, or the other people. That's why I'm reading a James Patterson right now. Okay, it's just not that deep. But I do love to test myself and read challenging things as well. And speaking of challenging, the last 2 books were like that as well. And the next one is Augustin Burroughs' Running with Scissors. This is my husband's favorite author. I think he's only read about 5 authors, including myself. But he's read everything by Augustin Burroughs. Now, I will tell you, I had a really difficult time when I read this book. I just remember reading it, and then I saw the movie. I did not love the movie. My mom loved this movie. I don't know why. But there was, like, I will tell you that, like, do you ever think your situation is bad, and like I've talked a lot about growing up in an alcoholic home and all this kind of stuff, but do you ever like read a book and you're like, yeah, that situation was much worse? Okay, that was Running with Scissors for me. But it left so many unanswered questions. This was the first, you know, I think this is the thing. Like, it was told just, it was so vulnerable and so raw, Augustin Burroughs' voice, that I like immediately fell in love with his writing. I mean, immediately, from like 10 pages in. I didn't love it. It wasn't comfortable to read, but I just was so taken with his writing, how vulnerable and raw it was, that it made me like fall in love with him and like want to read everything by him. And I went on, his favorite book of mine, I don't love this book. This is not one of my favorite books. But my favorite book of his is Dry, and if you haven't read Dry, it's about when he goes to a drug and alcohol treatment facility, which I've been sober 24 years, and I worked in a treatment facility for 13 years. It is one of the most, I shouldn't say one of the, but I would say it's top 3 most accurate tellings of what a treatment program is really, really like. It was fantastic. It's still to this day one of my favorite like alcoholic memoirs that I've ever read. So if you haven't read Dry by Augustin Burroughs by any means, go check it out. Just go check it out. So anyway, but I think like for me, this was a book that I learned that sometimes, even though you don't love a book, you have to keep on pushing yourself through it, no matter, you know, just to be able to complete a book and look at it as a whole. Sometimes our feelings about a book, we don't really know until we've finished the book completely, you know? Which is why I struggle so hard with DNFing and not finishing a book, is because sometimes, like, you know, I can read 100 pages of a book, but it isn't until the 300 pages in that I'm like, oh my God, I get it now. Like, I love this book. And that was what this did for me. But still not one of my favorite books. It will never be a reread for me, probably. And the last book, okay, read this last year, did kind of like a group read on my channel, and that is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. And I have read Chuck Palahniuk before. I've read Snuff, which I liked, and I read Invisible Monsters, which I loved. And I had made a plan to read all of his books. We were going to do a whole, like, you know, we were going to read one of his books every 2 weeks. In fact, one of my friends made up bookmarks of every single one of his books that I have over in that drawer right there. My mother loved the movie Fight Club. I like the movie Fight Club. It's not one of my favorite movies, but I think some parts of it are hilarious and very well done. My mother thought it was zen. She just adored that movie. I tried so hard to read this book and like it, and I just didn't. It just, I don't know. And to be honest with you, it's like, it's interesting when this happens with an author. Like, I don't think I gave it a 0. I probably gave it 4 stars. I thought it was well done. I thought it was well written. I just didn't enjoy it. Like, and most of these books, in retrospect, I didn't enjoy it. Like, at the time, I'd finish it and be like, yeah, it was okay, or it was pretty good. But then, like, a month later, I'd be like, I probably could go back and change my rating on it. I did not love it, right? But what this did for me was, it made me not want to read any more of his books. And this is his first book. This was Chuck Palahniuk's first book. At that point, I wasn't excited to read any more of his books. I just didn't want to do it. I was like, I'll wait. And now there are other books of his that I want to read. And I've got a lot of his books on my bookshelf over there, and I haven't read them because I just didn't love this. So, have you ever had a book? I mean, I know that these aren't necessarily deep things about the books, but they're like, maybe deep things about our reading perceptions more. But have you ever had read a book that you've read other books by that author, but after you read one of their books, you're like, I don't want to read any of their stuff anymore? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Did you guys like this? I just didn't. It was hard for me to read. And I did get the graphic novel of this recently, though, because I saw it at the bookstore and I heard the graphic novel was fantastic. Well, it's actually Fight Club 2 is the one I got. I think it's Fight Club Remixed or Fight Club 2. It's the graphic novel. So I am going to read that this year. But the graphic novel sounds a little bit more fun than this. So, anyway, let me know what you think. Astonishing, irresistible, diabolically sharp, potent, memorable, hot, utterly original, ferocious, amazing, and brilliant. I don't know that I would use any of those words to describe it. I just didn't love it. So, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. How do your perceptions change after you read a book? Like, from before you go into it to after you go into it, does it change often, or do you usually have, like, you go into a book and you think, I'm going to love this book, and you love the book, or you go into a book and you think, I'm not going to really like this that well, and then you don't really like it? And how much do, like, movie and film adaptations, you know, like, change your perception of books? I think they're interesting conversations. Sometimes I refuse to watch the movie if I really liked the book. There's a lot of movies I won't watch the book. I will tell you that, and I've heard great things about the movie The Hate U Give, but it's hands down one of my favorite movies. And I watched Dumplin' because, or it's hands down one of my favorite books, and I have not seen the movie yet. Dumplin' by Julie Murphy is one of my favorite books as well, and I was not let down by that movie whatsoever. And I thought the adaptation, although creatively fictionalized and away from the book at times, was so well done. I just loved the movie so much. And I've heard really great things about The Hate U Give too, but like, The Hate U Give for me as a book is like way up here. I'm afraid if I watch the movie, like, what if it changes my perspective, you know, of the characters and things like that? And that's sometimes why I'm afraid to, you know, watch movies. So anyway, I will tell you that of all these books, you definitely have to read Jaws at some point, but get ready because it will change how you look at this movie and this book forever. I love you guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you, Gabby. I will link her channel, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.